Today, we've got to talk about Lifetime Movie Club. Okay, so I know pretty much everyone that's watching this video has at one point or another in their lifetime watched a Lifetime movie. Lifetime is a network geared towards women that's existed since like the early 90s or whatever. It's a very pervasive element of popular culture in that the way their movies are made is very specific. It's a very unique kind of made-for-television film that has become a huge part of pop culture in general. People tend to know immediately what you mean when you say you watched a movie on Lifetime. Up until the last, I'd say, 10 years or so, one of those movies would basically be perfectly right for this type of thing.
All right. Mothers, what is wrong with Tanya?
Tanya, oh my God, Tanya, look at me, show my face, Tanya, my Tanya, talk to me.
Mary Jo Beth Jojo.
Tanya, you've been going to those parties where girls do oral sex for bracelets.
That's right. That's right.
The idea being that these movies prey upon like the absolute worst stereotypes of housewives. The idea that all women sit at home and they cook and they wait for their husbands to come home, and the biggest things they're afraid of are like infidelity and, you know, spousal abuse and stuff, and that they don't actually exist beyond that paradigm, that basically women are just, I don't know, they wear aprons and their kids get kidnapped and they get beaten, like nothing else happens to them ever.
Let's get you on your mark here.
Oh, you're hurting my arm.
Who's gonna believe you?
But in recent years, I feel like the Lifetime original movie has become something slightly different and a little bit more unique and more fascinating. What actually sent me down this particular rabbit hole was a tweet that I saw on Twitter, because that's where tweets live. And it was from Twitter user @PrettyBadLefty, one of my favorite Twitter accounts to follow. He's really funny and smart. He tweeted, "Lifetime movies are absurd. If you want to understand why the Dems failed to win over the suburban mom demographic, all you need to do is watch a Lifetime movie and understand that they live in fear." Now, this entire video is not going to get super political or anything, but in multiple tweets, that Twitter user, because he also is a huge aficionado of Lifetime movies, has put forth similar theories. The notion that if you want to understand a very specific type, a very specific demographic in America, you have to understand what type of popular culture is made for them, which I agree with. In this case, it's a very specific cross-section. Very often I feel like the Democratic Party is more interested in catering to sort of this imaginary, moderate Republican, middle people, like people that don't like Trump, but voted for him anyway, but would vote for someone better if given the opportunity or what have you. It's a very specific niche. And, you know, most people kind of agree that that's never going to happen for them. But I say that to say that I do think that that imaginary person that they seem to be courting is exactly who modern Lifetime movies are aimed towards. Us is a really big film right now, as evidenced by the video I uploaded earlier this week. As a result, there's all these different think pieces going around about horror and how all the new horror movies that are popping off are really about hiding in plain sight, and there's not like big scary monsters. It's very mundane, regular things. The conversation surrounding the concept of elevated horror, the concept of, you know, this new wave of horror that is meant for people who are, I don't know, too smart for regular horror movies or something, like you think you'd do good for Saw. Anyway, most of those horror films sort of let you know what their audience is afraid of, obviously, right? Like you make a movie to scare an audience, and hopefully you hit the head on something in your film that's larger and more universal, and thus will affect a larger audience. But sometimes, you know, you can just pick like a specific sect of people and figure out what scares them and then take their money and scare them, and they'll do it, you know, over and over again. What's interesting about the kinds of movies that Lifetime makes now is that they all speak to different fears that they think are plaguing white suburban wine moms. The thing to understand is that none of Lifetime's original movies are outright horror films, okay? They don't have any involving like werewolves or things like that, or like, there's a couple that involve serial killers, but those are more true crime than horror. The thing is, their thrillers, their suspenses movies, their, you know, teen panic films, they're all horror movies for the audience that they're aimed towards. These are movies that scare the shit out of them. It's not about something popping up out of a closet with a knife. It's about your daughter leaving her computer open and you seeing an iMessage from one of her friends and they're talking about like boofing or something. That's what scares moms, apparently. Like I said, in recent years, Lifetime has diversified their output to be less the suburban scary mom, you know, spousal abuse, running away from husband type thing. And now they do these like, you know, biopics and stuff about like the Saved by the Bell cast and like Aaliyah. They do a lot more true crime stuff because obviously there's definitely a section of wine moms who are really into that type of shit and all the like true crime podcasts and whatnot. But to me, what makes their output so special is this very weird, specific brand of movie that exists between sort of the old style of Lifetime movie, you know, and then like sort of their newer stuff they do that like regular people all watch together and live tweet and, you know, sort of the stuff that's like aimed at like kind of everybody. What I want is that weird shit right in the middle. The weird shit in the middle. It's just specifically, you know, this strange melange of suburban middle class like panic and fear and paranoia. I remembered about a year ago actually that I watched one of these newer style Lifetime movies with my girlfriend called Stolen from the Suburbs. It stars Cynthia Watros, who you may remember as Libby from the show Lost. This is the second video in a week where I've talked about Lost. I love Lost. About her daughter being kidnapped and like sold into like white slavery and all this like crazy stuff happening, like all these like sex, you know, dungeon type shit. And it's basically like a procedural where like the mom is like the detective. I mean, these are actual detectives in the movie, but they're largely useless. And what blew me about the movie is that like it ends not the way a lot of these films I feel like used to end. It ends, spoilers I guess, like you care. It ends with like a Mexican standoff with like the mom who has a gun and her daughter she's trying to free, and the woman behind like the teen prostitution ring who's played by Olivia d'Abo, who you may remember as being sort of like the Moriarty to Detective Robert Gorin's Sherlock Holmes on Law & Order Criminal Intent. Anyway, it's them, and they have like this standoff, and she's talking like a Bond villain at this random mom about like how before she was just kidnapping kids for like commerce, but like now, because this woman meddled in her business, she's gonna like personally whore her daughter out to like the worst places. And, like it's very like there's like an implication that she's going to send her to like places where black people are, not just like white men. Like it's somehow different, I guess. And it's like, it's really fucked up and crazy. And then like the daughter ends up getting the gun and shooting her. I don't know if she dies or not, but whatever. It was like mind blowing to me that there was a Lifetime movie that was ending like with this much like thrills, you know? I couldn't believe it. So I wanted more, obviously. I created a little minor syllabus for myself to kind of more immerse myself in the Lifetime world. My initial thesis, what I thought I was going to find out all this really cool, interesting sociological stuff about people and where American society is as a whole and stuff, and like I kind of did that, but like I also kind of basically just discovered that this is like my new obsession. So going into it, I started out by getting recommendations from people that I know watch a lot of Lifetime movies. I started with my girlfriend, who's seen several. I looked through Pretty Bad Lefty's Twitter profile to see other Lifetime movies he's espoused. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you should, and he has tons of funny observations about these kinds of films. And then also my friend Ian Lindsay, who is also a bit of a Lifetime movie network aficionado. And between all those different people and just a couple of blogs I found and stuff, I put together a list of like 20 movies I like had to watch in a week because, as you guys have probably figured out from watching my channel this far, I'm kind of a masochist. As a result, I watched a ton of Lifetime movies back to back. I didn't full-on marathon them because I kind of had to take a break in between some of them to like re-center myself as a human because these movies are so uniquely weird, and also I had other deadlines about other films I had to watch and review. But I watched a ton, and the way I was able to watch a ton, this is crazy, this is kind of like the real crux of the video here, is that Lifetime has their own streaming service for their movies. It's called the Lifetime Movie Club. And if you already used to have like Netflix and Hulu and like Shudder and like Prime and all these other things, if you're a cinephile, I guess that you're covered, right? You can use Canopy and your library card to watch like obscure art films and stuff. You can have the Criterion channel soon or whatever, like yay for you. But if you want that real good shit, okay, if you want something that's like, I use all these different streaming sites and like friends and I share passwords and stuff, and like, you know, all my movie nerd friends, we're always looking for something to watch. We're always watching different movies, and like, and there's always going to be nights where you're on Netflix and you don't see anything you want to watch. Hulu doesn't have anything you want to watch. And like Prime sometimes has good stuff, but like you really got to dig there. And like, you know, the cool thing about Lifetime Movie Club is like you can just spin it like a fucking wheel, and I guarantee you're going to land on a banger. there's just going to be something in there that's like uniquely interesting and weird. Typically only 90 minutes, and it's going to take you on a goddamn journey, okay? The cool thing about Lifetime Movie Club, who did not sponsor this video, unfortunately, is that you can do a 7-day free trial for, to watch all this stuff for free, and then if you decide to keep it, it's $3.99 a month, which is, like, not a bad deal. So, I'm a big fan of free trials and not paying for money for things, so I did it, and I watched a ton of movies. The downside of this, though, is that their actual selection on the Lifetime Movie Club is, like, a little bit iffy. There's like a lot of good stuff, a lot more recent stuff, a lot of classics, but like some of the real good shit rotates on and off the service. It's like they're putting it back in the Disney vault. So if like you really start to get a taste for this like I did, and you start finding out about other like real primo dark horse titles that the Lifetime Movie Club seems to be hiding from you, well, you're in luck, because all that shit's on YouTube. There's a whole glimmering piracy community of people that rip Lifetime movies and put them on YouTube in surprisingly okay quality. So once you get the taste like I did, you're gonna have to go to like your alternate YouTube plug to get your Lifetime fix. But that's the landscape we're talking about. This is my thing now that I'm kind of into. What I wanted to do this week basically is talk about some minor observations I made about the world of modern Lifetime movies. Give you guys a couple of suggestions for movies I think you should watch and seek out. Because trust me, some of these movies are really special. And then, gauge interest to see if you guys want me to come back and do this later in the future. I mean, I have zero issue revisiting this topic at length all the time in the future because I'm kind of hooked. So, like I said, I started off with Stolen from the Suburbs, which I quite liked, and I'd already seen, but I kind of revisited through like this new lens, and I loved it. It's a really fun movie. It's well done. It's one of the Lifetime movies that actually feels more like an actual film. Like it doesn't feel like kind of mixed in a joke. It really works. There's a few that I watched that I was not totally crazy about, obviously. One of the trends I discovered I do not like in Lifetime movies is that while a lot of these movies are based around fears that the filmmakers presume that white middle-class moms have, there are also some that are not just the fear, but also this flip side of like sort of a weird fantasy, in the sense that sometimes they make these movies about mean girls that are so like sharp and bitter and like kind of fucked up and extravagant that they start to feel like, imagine if you made a movie and you wanted to make a movie about serial killers and a guy catching a serial killer, but you also secretly always wanted to murder people. Like how that movie would be and how it would feel and how odd it would be that you're like following a hero trying to track these people down, but the movie seems to be spending more time about these evil people. You know what? The way some of these movies treat mean girls in high school, it's basically the way Tim Burton treated Batman villains. Like it's obvious that Tim Burton really related to like the Penguin and the Joker and stuff more than he did Batman. Well, it's obvious that the people that make movies like 2008's Fab Five, the Texas cheerleader scandal, or 2018's Psycho Prom Queen are harboring some conflicted feelings about being a person on Earth. Some of these movies, they have these mean girl, popular girls who like run the school, which is not a particularly strange teen movie trope, but in these movies, the women like run like the town. It's like a random 17-year-old girl who's a cheerleader, and because like her mom's the principal or someone she knows on like the superintendent's like, board or whatever, there's all these things that happen, and there's always like some like normal, good-natured woman, typically brunette, who's like trying to stop them, but then like the whole town is like siding with like the mean girl that everyone in the town hates. I mean, some of these movies might as well go a step further to give them actual superpowers, because they're basically like the kid in the cornfield thing from like the Twilight Zone. These girls, through virtue of their popularity and arrogance and hatred, run like whole municipalities with their hair. It's nuts to me. And the movie set it up in such a way that you cannot wait to see them get their comeuppance, but then like they just never do. Like even when they end up being defeated, it's always like barely, and like it's really clear that whoever was making this like wanted to like luxuriate in their just like nastiness, but like didn't want them to pay for it in the end. And that's okay, I guess. I mean, there's like gangster movies where the gangsters don't go to jail and stuff. People like to root for a bad guy, but these bad guys in particular are just like not my kind of bad guys. It's weird, but it's fascinating. It's interesting to see these people, tell these stories that start off being like about like a girl being bullied by these mean girls, and then the movie slowly continues, and you're like, am I supposed to side with the bully? Is that who I want to? Am I supposed to emulate the bully in this? Like, is that? Because at first you'd watch them and think, oh, I guess moms are of course afraid of like their kid going to school and getting picked on. But then it's like, but do they secretly want to go back to high school and pick on their own kid? Like, do they want to be an evil younger version of themselves who would put their kid in their place because their kid doesn't pay attention to them at dinner time? Right? That's odd. There's a lot of really good teen-related ones, and a lot more than I expected, actually, because, like, I figured those would be the ones that would be, like, the most out of touch. But that out-of-touchness is part of what makes it special. You know, you watch a movie like Double Daddy from 2015, which is about a young, semi-decent teenage guy hooking up with a girl at a party he's throwing, who he accidentally gets pregnant at the same time he's gotten his own, like, nice girlfriend pregnant. Is this weird love triangle between, like, a guy who's presented as being, like, a decent kid who, like, wants to do the right thing and, like, take care of both of his children, but then he has, like, the good girlfriend that he's in love with and he's going to marry, and then, like, the shitty, conniving, like, manipulative girlfriend who got pregnant on purpose because her family's trash. And what interested me about that movie is that it's not so much about the dynamics between the teens, who are all, like, struggling with this, like, really specific, like, fucked up thing they have to deal with. It's more, like, the war between, like, the families, like, the family of, like, the good kid, like, the good girl, like, her parents, and then, like, the parents of, like, the guy, and then, like, the non-existent family of, like, the shitty girl. It's like this weird, like, economic war between them where, like, no one is really talking about the kids or their feelings or, like, bringing life into this world. It's like all the adults are just talking about who's going to divvy up, like, the financial responsibilities, which, I mean, is, like, the right thing to be thinking of sometimes when it comes to, like, bringing humans onto Earth. It's like you got to feed them and put them in diapers. But it was just odd to watch a movie that was, like, so much about the economic anxiety of, like, middle-class white people in a movie called Double Daddy about a kid knocking up two teens. And, like, it is insane. Like, the longer the movie goes on, like, the bad girl that he shouldn't have gotten knocked up turns out to be, like, you know, it's very Gone Girl-esque. She's a little sociopathic, and I mean, weirdly, I think more like what's the word? I think weirdly she's, like, more sympathetic in some ways than other characters in this movie, but she's very clearly painted as the villain, and, like, actually kills a guy. I think she kills a guy. One of the things I'll note throughout these movies is that, like, many of them involve more murder than you think a movie like this would need, and some of them, it turns out, don't have enough murder. A lot of the absurdity of the modern Lifetime original movie comes from the fact that murder can be injected anywhere, like, out of nowhere, and it's never shocking, but it's always appropriate. Like, it's the anxieties and fears and, like, just discomfort of, like, modern society are heightened to such a degree that solving them through bloodshed seems reasonable. But, you know, as much as it seems to be a specifically suburban thing, occasionally they're able to flip it too. Like, it's not only solely about, like, what suburban people are afraid of. There's a couple of times where the movies seem to be, like, suburban people, like, stunting on, like, people who live in cities. For instance, there's 2017's A Neighbor's Deception, which is about a married couple from the city moving to, like, the burbs. And the husband's, like, a banker or some shit. It never really says what he does, and who cares. But he has money, and he goes to work all the time, and he's always very busy. And then his wife sits at home, and, like, she's kind of fraught with different, like, fears and anxieties and things of that nature. And it turns out that their neighbor is a psychotherapist. Convenient. And that neighbor offers to give her psychotherapy for free. And throughout the course of the story, it turns out that he's, like, nuts and evil and, like, uses this to, like, pick up women and, like, kidnap them and stuff like that, and, like, his sister's involved, like, his wife is actually his sister. But the thing that made me so interested in the movie is that it seems to be an entire movie dedicated to showing people who live in the city that maybe mock the suburban people who are the subject of these movies, that, like, they couldn't fucking last one day in the suburbs. Like, you have no idea how difficult it is to go jogging and seeing trees all the time, like real trees, okay? Not that, like, your park bullshit. And it's really interesting, like, these people, the movie itself is based around, like, this strange red state, blue state divide, kind of, like, this just, like, you guys don't know what it's like for us, you could even handle it, you know? Like, this woman is, like, losing her mind, living in a nice suburban neighborhood just because it's, like, kind of different than, like, the cramped urban environment she's used to, and it treats it like everyone else around her has superpowers because they have 2-car garages. It's nuts. Ultimately, that one has something of a happy ending. But along the way, it really peeks into some fucked up shit happening in the cul-de-sac. There's a throwback, like 2005's Odd Girl Out, which is a really sweet movie. Kind of feels, I don't know, like Lady Bird at times, but, like, scary. Like, it's like this mom and daughter relationship that's actually kind of engrossing, but the daughter's, like, picked on ceaselessly at school, and, like, her mom has to get involved. It makes a really cool double feature with Sexting in Suburbia from 2012, which is about a girl whose nudes leak, and then she kills herself, and then her mom has to, like, find out who's responsible. So it's like a whodunit about, like, revenge porn. And that sounds like a weird thing to be excited about because it's fucked up, but, like, the way it's done is, like, really cool. It really is structured like a film noir, but it takes place at a high school in the suburbs, and a mom who's like not a detective has to solve everything. It's crazy. That actually sort of gets at one of my favorite things. While some of the best Lifetime movies really are about teens and teen psychology and the way that parents and daughters and stuff interact, specifically daughters, there's very rarely any interesting psychological stuff to be taken away from like son and father relationships in these movies because they're basically non-existent. But a movie like The Choking Game, 2014's The Choking Game, is like one of the best movies I've ever seen, ever, period, let alone a Lifetime movie. And The Choking Game is about a girl who like can't really be her best self or like open up in front of people and doesn't really know who she is, starts hanging out with a girl who moves into the neighborhood, and that girl's secret to being cool and carefree is that she chokes herself to get high. So then she gets into it, and then they find that the other popular kids are doing it too, and she ends up basically tearing her life apart because she becomes like too good. She believes in herself like too much and starts like making bad decisions or whatever. But the whole movie just has this weird subculture about choking yourself out to feel high. And somehow that, and to me, is scarier than the movies that involve like teen drinking and teen drugs and like teens listening to rap music because that signifies they're bad people or whatever. The specificity of the Choking Game culture is so fucking strange and so weird, and it just works. It gives the movie extra layers and just a new dimension, I think, that other films covering similar issues within teens and like teen confidence in society and stuff like they just missed the boat on because they don't understand how uniquely fucking stupid teenagers are and the kinds of things that only they would ever do to get out of situations. There's like just a creativity you have at that age that like you just an adult would not do. It's why adults are always doing really corny, stupid things, and teens are always coming up with like nuts, like galaxy brain ways to like fill their time and fix their problems. And I really think The Choking Game is like a really great distillation of that if you want to check that out. I think the two films I would suggest to you above all else, over anything else in this video, are 2012's Tall Hot Blonde, starring Garrett Dillahunt, directed by Courtney Cox of all people, and, more importantly, 2015's The Bride He Bought Online, which is one of the best thriller movies about catfishing ever made. Tall Hot Blonde is a really unique film where Garrett Dillahunt delivers arguably the greatest performance of his character actor career as just a sad, sullen military, I think it's like a Marine vet who works at like a plant, and he's bored with his family, and the only escape he has in life is playing poker with his friends once a week. But then he discovers online poker, internet poker. So he gets online, starts playing poker with his friends. He can play every night if he wants to, and then he starts talking to a random girl from online poker. Tall Hot Blonde is her username. And his life gets turned upside down, and it ends in fucking murder. It actually opens with murder and then circles back around to how the murder happened. Most of these movies actually open with a crazy murder or something nuts happening and then cutting back to like, filling in the blanks. It's a weird structural thing. But Tall Hot Blonde is amazing. It's hilarious. Garrett Dillahunt should have gotten some kind of award for this movie. Maybe he did, I just don't know about it, but he's really, really good. And the other one, The Bride He Bought Online, you notice I'm not spoiling too many of these because I really want you to go actually see them. The Bride He Bought Online is like primo like internet culture content. Like the movie's literally about a young girl trying to come up with content for a blog so that she can get blog famous and not have to go to college. And doing so, they catfish this lonely guy and turn him into a near murderer. It is mind-blowing. Those two movies, I guarantee you just gotta watch them. I actually can't quite remember if they're both on Lifetime Movie Club right now or not because the thing rotates from week to week, but I do know that at the very least they're both on YouTube. So yeah, that's it. I think that Lifetime movies are nuts and great and fun, and everyone should watch them. Everyone should check them out and try to find out more about their neighbors and their friends and the world around them. Unless you live nowhere near the weirdo fucking people who live in these movies, in which case they're really fun to gawk at from afar. Thank you guys. This is obviously the second video I've uploaded this week. Thank you for your patience for me being sick last week. Tuesday will be a new video, and we'll be back on schedule after that. We also broke 100 subscribers this week, which I'm super stoked about, and I'm really glad that people are watching the videos and liking them, and I appreciate that greatly. This is amazing. It means the world to me. If you haven't subscribed yet, but you do like the videos, please do. That way you can see more of them in the future when I put them up. New ones on Tuesday and every other Tuesday after that. And, the weather's getting nicer. Summer's happening. A lot more movies are coming out every week. So probably as the spring ends and we move into summer blockbuster season, I might actually start uploading more often, watching more big, loud, dumb, expensive CGI laden movies for you guys to decide whether or not you're going to go in there or hard-earned cash. Yeah. Anyway, thanks guys for watching. Sign up for Lifetime Movie Club. You won't regret it. And have a great day.
Thanks for having me.
You're not going anywhere. You'll never leave me. That's our show.